Here for your Overwatch. A conversation that I want to have immediately about Overwatch is the design decisions based around the competitive balancing of the game. Now, obviously, that is geared towards the eSports section of the game, but it's also going to trickle down to the ranked play and, to a lesser extent, into the public matches. So it's something that affects everyone. The first thing that's important to establish is, what is our goal when we're doing this? Is our goal to make the user experience paramount? Or for me, I want to increase the spectator experience and also the skillful aspects of the game, because if you enable the ability for two teams to utilize skill to show who's better than the other one, the more skilled and talented team will win more often. That seems like something you would assume everyone agrees with, but if you dedicate to that, there's certain things that have to be done and sacrifices that are going to have to be made. Namely, in this game, you may not see ultimate parity between characters. That's something you might have to stomach. It can't be the case that every single hero is viable for the game. We can try to make each one viable in a niche way where this can work in certain lineups, certain compositions to counter certain small things, but overall it should not be the goal, in my opinion, to have every single character be on a level playing field, because that's never going to be achievable. Being able to spread that out is a valid concern, but paramount is making sure that competition and skill is number one, because if that isn't the case, the skill ceiling is lowered, and ultimately you have a more cheesy game. And I think a worse esport and a worse game for everyone, actually. Once we establish that, we have to realize that there's some opinions that you can't take into consideration, because everyone is biased in some way. I like using the analogy of the NBA. If you have a certain team that is incredibly athletic and tall, they might not mind if you change the rules, and then obviously the analogy goes to the game where we change the game state, change the game types, buff, nerf the heroes, etc. If they change the rules to require the hoop to be twice as high, because all of a sudden players who can't reach that, can't jump as high, can't get there, will be destroyed, and that one team will be able to walk all over them. Similarly, if you think about it, if the NBA put all of the hoops down to kiddie level, down to where the toddlers can play, then all of a sudden all that massive talent and all of that skill doesn't translate in the same way. The game starts to look more chaotic. Little children can just as easily score points as with the grown men and athletes. So this is something you have to keep in mind, right? We want to have some sort of level where we can set it at that it appeals to what our goal is. Now, currently, I think Overwatch is actually in a pretty darn good competitive state. After watching about the most recent 10 hours of the Gosu Gamers Overkill League, I really learned a lot about the game and how it plays, and I've changed my opinion somewhat. It's actually very obvious to me now that Capture Point is the worst competitive mode, not King of the Hill, not Control like we thought before. But regardless of any of that, something was said in this cast that really rubbed me the wrong way, that made me worry about who Blizzard is going to listen to when it comes to making these design decisions. And I'll play the clip here.
Ilios is still out there. Yeah, and Ilios has been sort of the black sheep of King of the Hill maps, to say the least.
Yeah, that's actually a compliment based on what I've heard about Ilios. People do not like playing that at high levels.
I know, like, certain teams like LG just absolutely despise it. I don't know if I should say LG. I know Enigma despises that map. He's very vocal in Discord about, you ask, it's like, hey, Enigma, what do you think about Ilios? He's just like, I can imagine just making the, like, grimmest face in the world saying, I hate Ilios. Just,
yeah, how to trigger someone immediately. Just mention Ilios.
He's not alone. There's a lot of people that dislike Ilios. I'm not even sure why. I mean, I guess there's certain reasons. Arguably, it's the one King of the Hill map that's a little bit more friendly, the Widow play, and it has some unique aspects, but I feel like the hate for Ilios might be a little bit over the top.
Yeah, but again, I think that's an understatement to say a little more friendly to Widow. Widow's amazing on that
yes.
map.
Oh, no.
Like every stage of that map.
I mean, stage 2, I'd say it's a little bit variable, but certainly, or the pit's part of the stage. The Ruin stage, though, very good for Widow, and even the first stage, not too bad.
Yeah, I think the first time we casted competitive Ilios, it was like Widow and Genji
Widow,
and then a bunch of people just trying not to die to Widows and Genji.
Now, obviously, I gotta say, this is a third-party conversation, so someone explaining what he thinks another player feels about the game. So it doesn't really matter to me, the individuals of this. But what struck me quite jarringly is that a pro player, or anyone for that matter, would have a problem with one of the most skillful characters in the game having maps where she can be utilized to a full extent. That's sacrilegious to my maximizing skill in competition, because I have seen the other games where a pro meta team composition, which enables maximum sustainability, has developed as one of the best ways to control a point. It's called a 2-2-2 setup. It has 2 Winstons, 2 Tracers, and 2 Lucios. And at one point, one of the control games, which is the gameplay you're watching in the background, both teams were running the same one. And when you start to stop and think about it, you have a character, Winston, who is all movement, no FPS skill whatsoever. 4 players out of the 12 are already playing him. Lucio, who his gun has some skill, but for the most part, he's there to sustain the team. And Tracer, who does more damage and is one of the harder skill characters, definitely one of the hardest movement characters, but the majority of the engagements going on in this match had a complete absence of skill shots. And I'm not saying Overwatch has to be all about skill shots. I know it's not CSGO, so forgive me if I'm biased in that way, where I love CSGO as an esport. I also have a lot of criticisms about CSGO. Believe me, I don't think it's perfect. But I wondered to myself, perhaps a pro player doesn't have a Widow on his team who's as good as Cloud9 Reaver, or doesn't want to play Widow, doesn't like the range engagement. I don't know what his reasons would be, but tell me, I'm going to show you some footage here. Watch the overtime of this game. Would you prefer to see a scoped skill shot player dominate another team with precision aims and headshots, or would you rather watch this?
Yeah, but they are going to have shields as they try to get in here. Oh, no. Oh, Cruz does get on the point.
Cruz barely got in time. He almost got booped away. Voltage able to get on the point now, but this is rough. This is where now it's going to be reunited, just chaining deaths over and over again to try and keep this in their favor.
Voltage has got a pulse bomb up. We've seen a pulse bomb can switch it over. He does die before he gets it off.
Yeah, and this is where, even though C9 has the advantage, you can really expect Reunited to continually move in here and hope for the miracle. And how's that miracle going to happen? That miracle is going to happen with Pulse Bomb, if they can keep it in overtime. Voltage is going to have to get on the point here with his body. He does get in. He has a Pulse Bomb at the ready. Will he throw out the Pulse Bomb? He does. It sticks! But Primal Rage is going to insulate Winston from that. Primal Rage, greater than Pulse Bomb in terms of living. We do have a sound barrier coming out here from C9. C9 just trying to stem this tide. Winston's getting juggled in the corner. And these overtimes can last quite a long time when you have Tracers and Winstons just swarming in.
Yeah, you got to absolutely clean that point up to be able to capture it. It's going to be going for a while, I think.
C9 getting on top here, making space, getting 3 extra kills, but Reunite not doing a bad job of keeping this in play. And this is a case where, again, they just need to keep stalling out and hope for the Pulse Bomb dream. And as long as they keep stalling out, who knows how long this is going to go.
Unfix just jumping around like it's a trampoline, stays alive, puts more pressure on the point. Now his team's going to be able to get there in time.
Yep, the Tracers are coming back in. Voltage is going to have Pulse Bomb up here in a second. Oh no, Tweezy needs to get back on the point, but he wasn't able to get back in time. Honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I think that could have went on for way too long.
You're kind of okay with Tweezy making the small mistake at the end to let it mercilessly
Yes, I'm totally okay with that.
To me, I think the answer is obvious. It's blatantly obvious. Or do we want to see Winston getting play of the game, where he holds mouse 1 and W and just runs at the other team, and based upon the team composition and the positioning, he just gets free kills? And I'm not somebody who's like, oh, he can't have free kills. Everything should be super hard. It's not what I'm trying to say at all. But what I am saying is that the map design and the decisions that Blizzard makes should be focused around enabling these star players that have tons of skill, rather than lowering the hoop down to a level where only team composition matters. And if everybody has the sustainable team comp where Winston has tons of health, Tracer can run away, and Lucio heals everything in an area with an overpowered ult that gives everyone like a bajillion health, the game doesn't play as good as I think it could. Now, I will say this, I watched so much of this, whenever this lineup came up, it hasn't seemed like pro teams have conquered it and found the more obvious counters. I have some theories, really, but ultimately I'm just spitballing because I haven't been able to play ranked at all and be able to play against a team running this who's at our skill level. But I would surmise that a composition like 2 McCrees, 2 Roadhogs, and 2 Bastions would kind of destroy the Lucio, Winston, Tracer lineup, because my imagining would be Roadhog could pull and pick one of those players out, McCree could stun them, and Bastion is the best DPS character in the game, and you could easily pick off characters that way. Whereas right now, teams who have more fluid lineups are struggling to find a way to be able to lock down one of those characters because Tracer just whips away. Lucio runs so fast and heals everything, and Winston has infinite health, especially when he ults. It seems like they have trouble getting those picks because man advantage is so important in this game. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think my composition is necessarily good by itself, but I think it might be good at countering that one. Until, of course, they get a Widowmaker or anything that can shoot at range that was going to require you to protect the Bastion and dedicate more bodies in order to make that work. But that's, I think, what we want to see in this game, because I've thought really hard about whether the hero limit would be a good idea or a bad idea. I think ultimately Blizzard isn't even going to go for it because it's so against the design ethos of the game, the freely changing environment. But that's something that pro teams are going to have to master. They're going to have to put themselves in a forward-facing anti-strat composition in order to take out these better compositions, and then once the other team swaps it up a little bit that they're now countering them, it goes back and forth, and that's really how the game is meant to be played, I feel. So in the same way that I have tried to think of ways to counter the 2-2-2 setup, ultimately on some maps, you might have to have a team that has double Widowmaker or has to allocate more resources to deal with her. I think that's what the spectators want to see. Above all else, this is my point that I want to make. Esports should not exist to make the pro players comfortable playing. In no other sport are the pro players allowed to dictate where the basketball hoop is set. It is for the league organizers and the people who are behind the scenes thinking about what we want this esport to be to make those decisions. Obviously, I have my own opinions, but you'll notice it has nothing to do with my own experiences in the game. It's about what I want for the game to be objectively for everyone, outside in the open, not how I want to experience it personally. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm speaking out of school here. But ultimately, the better esport will always be the one that enables skilled players to succeed. So honestly, I think these control maps could use bigger, more complicated maps that spreads these teams out and forces more individual skill to be shown throughout the team. Because right now, it's a whole lot of death ball against that death ball, and their Winstons just slamming into each other's Winston. It's cool for its own thing, but I just want to see a bigger variety of this. And if pro players are comfortable playing this way, too bad. There's going to be better pro players that can play double Widow on every single map and dominate you. Like, I think it's better for the overall competition of the game and also better for the spectators, because I don't think spectators want to have the camera propped in the top of a corner of a room while both teams play Ring Around the Rosie on the objective point with their characters that are designed to just stay alive longer. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more that we post, we're posting daily. Subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share with your friends. It's been Frito for your Overwatch. See you guys next time.